is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to 2023 season episode 37 of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. As always, this podcast is brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the drivers of the Blaney racing family for 2 decades, and Team Blaney itself launched on social media back in 2014. Now, each weekly episode of the podcast offers an in-depth analysis of Ryan Blaney's latest NASCAR Cup Series race, plus news, notes, and a lineup of special guests all throughout the year. And Steve, that is exactly why we are here midweek, the week of a victory at Talladega Superspeedway, to bring everybody a special bonus episode of the Team Blaney Podcast that will also involve a special guest.
Yes. I reach out to as many people as I can when they win a race, because there are a lot of people behind the scenes that you don't get to hear about, and they're vital to the victory. And luckily, we've gotten good relationships with people at Penske and Penske Racing, and the 12 team, and Jonathan himself. I sometimes ask him for somebody to come on, and I didn't actually say who, but Jonathan picked this next guest, and it's going to be quite interesting to hear from him and hear about how vital he was over the weekend. And I think even Ryan has an opinion on how vital he was over the weekend, even, right?
Yeah, so let's go to Ryan Blaney's post-race press conference, where he talks a little bit about one aspect of the race that was very important to just the overall race at Talladega and also to the victory.
I think you saw the third lane more today than normal, and honestly, it's honestly just a massive fuel mileage race now. I mean, where the stages are, the less time you can spend on pit road, the better, and you gain your track position. So literally the first stint of each stage, everyone's just saving gas. I ran 50% throttle damn near the whole first stint of each stage just to save gas. So I'm on pit road less amount of time, take less gas, you jump the cars that are using more gas. And when the leaders of the bottom lane, the middle lane start doing that, the third lane kind of develops, because you have guys that are like, well, screw it, I'm not going to save, I'm trying to get to the front. And so I think that's why you have all these fluctuations, and third lane goes, middle goes, it kind of fades, and it depends on who's leading that lane, who's saving fuel or not.
So, Steve, we talked about that in the episode just a little bit, and maybe kind of crushing some dreams on why they saw 3-wide racing all day long. When you're at the track, it's still super exciting. I don't care what you say. It's plenty of eye candy and entertainment. But as Ryan said, fuel mileage is so important at super speedways. So if anybody out there hasn't guessed yet, we are bringing on a member of the Team Penske 12 crew, and that's going to be the gas man, or the fuel man, Chris Conklin, to the Team Blaney Podcast. And we're really excited to bring him on, and don't want to waste any more time. Let's jump over to that interview now. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So it's a perfect weekend to bring Chris on. They're fresh off a victory, second victory of the year for this number 12 team. So just to kick things off, we want to say congratulations on that big win this past week at Talladega.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was a big one.
Absolutely, and especially in the midst of a playoff run here. It's been a little while since that win at the Coca-Cola 600, so it has to really kind of give you guys some momentum going into this next round, especially kind of being locked in.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had a couple rough races leading up to it, so it was nice to, like you said, build some momentum, and we're all on a high right now, so that's good.
So I think we're going to circle back a little bit to that Talladega victory and everything that went into that a little bit later in the interview. But every time we bring on a crew member, we like to kind of give a backstory, because I think it's really interesting to get you guys a little bit more spotlight, especially when it's a good spotlight, because sometimes it isn't always when people get to know your names. But when they hear Chris Conklin, we want people to know who you are. And I like to say, for a long time in NASCAR, it's always been that weird thing where some people consider it a sport, some people don't. Drivers for the longest time could be athletes, but they didn't have to be athletes. But in the modern era, in these pit crews, the pit crew members definitely have to be athletes. And that is totally your background. And from what I understand, that goes all the way back to high school when you were kind of a multi-sport athlete. Can you talk a little bit about your early years in high school and getting into athletics? And it seems like you sowed a lot of fields. You were in like basically everything you possibly could compete in.
Yeah. So high school was really busy because it was one sport to another. So I played football, basketball, baseball, ran a little bit of track as well when that would fit in. Didn't really play anything other than baseball until I was a freshman in high school. So, and I don't know what exactly drew me. I think my friends kind of drew me to basketball, so I picked up basketball. And then football, I was just growing. So next thing you know, I'm 6'2", 230 as a sophomore, and football just kind of is where you would lean to. So, yeah, it's I've been athletic, doing athletic sports for since freshman year of high school. Yeah.
Now, from there,
Mhm.
from your high school career, and from what I understand, you played on different sides of the ball in football and kind of honed in on football a little bit.
Yep.
Talk about that transition. You were linebacker for a little while, and then you end up on the offensive side of the ball, and I think that's what you eventually end up getting recruited for when it goes to college and
Yeah.
professional sports.
Yeah. So started playing defense. Played varsity my sophomore year. It was my second year ever playing. Um, I didn't switch to offense, so I didn't switch to tight end, which is the position they put me at, until like 6 games left in the season my senior year. Um, and we were not really a pass heavy team, so I didn't get a lot of passes. But when I did catch the ball, I didn't get tackled very much. So, I think I had like 7 catches in 6 games for like 6 touchdowns or something crazy. Got recruited by a couple local schools, mostly Division II schools. Had a couple D1 like East Carolina and Appalachian State, and they all recruited me for tight end. Like nobody recruited me for defense. Yeah, so I went to a few recruiting visits. Ended up deciding on Wingate. It seemed like home when I stepped on campus, and that's ultimately where I decided to play. It was also one of the few schools that paid for my education. So
what part of North Carolina did you grow up in? As compared to like Charlotte and where all the race teams are. Are are you on the coast? Or are you all the way in the mountains? Or
nope. So I grew up like 2 hours away from the race shop now in Mooresville. I grew up right outside of Burlington, North Carolina. It's called Snow Camp, but nobody will know where Snow Camp is. So maybe if I said between Greensboro and Raleigh, that's where I was at. And yeah, so it's not too far away. And it's crazy. I never even thought about this career, and I'm just kind of right down the road. We're getting guys now from other states, and it's just kind of wild how it all worked out.
Yeah. Now you're at Wingate and you play college ball at Wingate. Wingate is how far from everything? I'm not sure where at North Carolina.
Yeah, so it's right outside of Charlotte.
Is it? Okay.
Yep. So Matthews is, a town outside of Charlotte, and then Monroe is where Wingate is, which is the town right next to Matthews. So kind of Monroe, Matthews, Charlotte, and I was out that way. So
that's now we were reading about your college days there, and you actually had some interesting little connections toward the NFL to begin with. So there you played for somebody in college that actually had a connection to the NFL and kind of helps you maybe get those tryouts that you needed, huh?
Yeah, you guys have done your research. Yeah, so my college football coach was Frank Reich, little brother Joe. So Joe Reich was the head coach at Wingate when I was, and he still is now. But so what's funny is Frank, Joe's older brother, who is now the head coach of the Carolina Panthers, was coaching the Indianapolis Colts at the time, quarterback. So he was with Peyton Manning and that group. He would come to practice, in the off season and occasionally during the season. And yeah, I think that's the reason I even kind of got noticed by that league. And then once he put the word out, it just kind of snowballed into, next thing you know, you got teams every day coming out. So yeah, it's kind of a cool little story there. And now Frank's back in Charlotte.
That is kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
He was quite the college quarterback, and he played pretty good in the pros too. But
Yeah.
we know him from his days at Maryland.
Yeah.
I think he beat Bernie Kosar that one game, if you remember right, Adam.
We don't want to talk about that. So, Chris, can you talk a little bit about kind of the success maybe you had during your college career, and when maybe you thought that you could have a shot at taking it to the next level and eventually making it possibly in the NFL?
Yeah, I would say my junior year, I kind of got a little glimpse that there's a possibility there. I was you know, I put up some really good numbers my junior year. Frank Reich actually pulled me aside one day at practice and told me that I could do it, and that leading into my senior year kind of motivated me. What's funny is I remember the first day the first scout came out, and it was the Baltimore Ravens, and I was actually not scheduled to practice that day because I was like kind of nursing an injury in my hand. And Coach Wright, Frank's younger brother Joe Wright, called me at my dorm and told me, "Hey, Baltimore's coming today. You might want to suit up." So, and then it was funny because after that, it was just Colts are coming, Jets are coming, Panthers are coming down. So, my senior year was kind of, I didn't get to skip practice very often. A lot of seniors don't have to practice that much, but
Now, when it eventually gets down to time for the NFL draft, you had sounded like you had an interesting draft night to where there's a possibility that you were going to get drafted, but then a different deal kind of ended up working out by the end of the night.
Yeah. So the agent that I ended up signing with was out of Charlotte as well. So his name was Robert Walker. So we were at his office for the second day of the draft. Nobody he had was going to be a first day guy. It was kind of, later round guys. And so funny thing is the phone rings in the 6th round, right? And it's Carolina, they're calling, and it's Coach Fox and the tight ends coach, who was the one that came to the pro day I had. But they called and said that they had a spot for me at like number 249, which is like 3 away from Mr. Irrelevant, the guy that gets the Disney World parade. So I was good with, that. I was like, 249 sounds great to me. It is what it is. Well, we hang up the phone. It wasn't 10 minutes later, they call back and they have a contract ready. So it's kind of weird how it works because they wanted to sign a undrafted free agent contract because they wanted that spot for another guy named Jeff Schwartz from Oregon that they were afraid the team behind him was going to get. So looking back on it now, maybe I would have waited to see if somebody else would have called. But, I was 20 years old, right? I was young. I was 17 my freshman year in college. So, and it's right down the road, right? I'm 30 minutes from the stadium right at that moment. So we signed the deal and I was done in the 6th round. But, funny thing is when the draft was over, the phone rang with other teams. So I could have had a choice of where I went. But, I was, it is what it is, and it worked out fine.
Well, a lot of those teams, when they do that, everybody's looking for whoever didn't get drafted, and
right.
The only thing about that is what kind of opportunity you get. That's the only thing once you get there. But so that part happens. Where does NASCAR come in? Where do they come from? Who actually spots you there and says something to you that you might be able to work in NASCAR?
Yep. Okay. So when I was at the Panthers for the OTAs and the preseason and the training camp and all that stuff, there was a assistant strength coach named Sean Powell. And I was the guy that would stay after and do extra work, right? Because I'm trying to make the team. And Sean Powell was the guy that would always stay after with me and help me and spot me and give me exercises to do and make sure I'm not going to hurt myself. Well, anyway, make a long story short, I got released in September or October of that year, and Sean Powell left the Panthers in December. So I'm bouncing around the league, right? I spent some time in New York and Green Bay. Well, Sean calls me because he knew I was from the area. I grew up in the area. Sean calls me. He had taken the coaching job, the strength coach job at Penske Racing. So he calls me and he says, "Hey, are you looking for a job?" And I said, "You know what? I'm actually going to New York tonight." I was actually on the way to go to New York Jets for a tryout. And I said, well, yeah, I still kind of am. I'll let you know how this goes. Came back the next day from New York. So it was a 1-day trip.
Mm-hmm.
I said, Sean, I think I'm coming to you. And, I walked in the building and I got signed up that day. So that's kind of how it happened. I mean, it was just kind of it was a God thing that I met Sean, and it was a God thing that I stayed after and spent time with him to make a relationship with him.
Did you think at that point, so I mean, you had that opportunity to suit up at least in the preseason for your hometown team?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't ask if you were actually a Panthers fan growing up or not, because I know it could be a little different as far as team allegiances go. But did you think your NFL dream was over at that point, or did you think I'm going to do this for a little bit and then maybe I'll get a shot somewhere else eventually?
So, it's kind of, so when I got cut from the Panthers, I kind of went into like this mode to where I'd shut down a little bit. I remember I hadn't ran in like a month, right? And the Packers called me. Jermichael Finley had gotten hurt, and they wanted to fly me up and have me fill his role for as long as he was hurt. Well, again, I'm going to shorten this story way down, but I go out there and I run my 40 for him. I ran a 4.5 on my pro day, right? And I was about 255 to 260 pounds. I show up at the Packers, I'm 248, and I run a 4.8. That's what happened in a month. So, I was in a bad spot when I got cut. I thought the Packers happened, and I was like, you know what, maybe I can. I'll stay in shape, and if another opportunity comes up, I'll be on top of it. Only one more opportunity came, and that was with the Jets, and I spent the all season with them, and then they let me go, and the phone stopped ringing. So that was it.
So at that point, you kind of come back to Penske. Mm-hmm. You put it off for a little bit. What was your first job there, and what crew were you working on? What team were you working with?
So my first job, it was back when Catch Can was around. I don't know if you guys remember the Catch Can and the gas can.
Yep.
So the coach Trent Cherry, who I have a great relationship with, and we kind of hit it off really quick. He got me on the, at the time, Nationwide car, and it was the 22 car that the year that Discount Tire came over. So we ended up winning the championship. I think I won 5 Xfinity and Nationwide championships. So I Catch Can for 1 year, and then they got rid of Catch Can. I fueled for 1 year while I'm learning how to jack, and then I moved to jack for 11 years after that. So I've been doing this. This is my 15th year. So first car was the 22 Xfinity car, and then Blaney came along, and I've been with Blaney, off and on my whole career.
Talk a little bit about those different jobs, because again, so you've done a Catch Can, which has gone away, but can you describe a little bit about what that is, then what the responsibilities are for a fueler and what the responsibilities are for being a jackman?
Yeah, so the Catch Can guy used to be, if you go back and watch some old pit stops, it was the guy in the back of the car that would open the vent to let the gas go in. NASCAR got rid of that because he had his back to everything, so they were kind of worried about safety issues there. And what was cool is you would plug it in and you grab the first can, the gas man would go get the second can, and it's a cool stop. Gassing is exactly what it sounds like. How fast can you put the gas in the car, and can you be done before the other guys around you are done? And then the jackman is the guy, that lifts the car up and now puts the tire on as well, and then, jacks the left side. So I did 1 year of the hanging a tire thing, but I'm also 6'4", and getting that low to put a tire on was not kind of what I was built for, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now that would have been pre next gen too, right? So could you imagine hanging a tire now and as fast as these guys, as you got to move now?
Maybe when I was 25, I could probably roll with it now, but now I'm 36. I don't think that's going to happen.
How has the job of being the gas man changed from the old generation of car to the next gen? Now I mentioned, speed is like a big thing. They change the tires much faster, and it does look like you do have to engage the can, get out of the way for the guys to come back around and then get back in again. So can you talk a little bit about the intricacies of what you have to do on a pit stop?
Yeah, I can. So the stop has gotten about 2 or 3 seconds faster. And there were times even and the fuel cell has gotten bigger in the race car. So instead of 18 gallons, it now holds 20 gallons. So it's taking more gas, and the stop is 2 to 3 seconds faster. So I think you're seeing this shift in gasmen that are kind of going towards the more athletic guys that can move their feet, but they also still have to be bigger guys, right? Because it's 100 pounds of water weight that's kind of shuffling around the whole time you're moving. Yeah, it's been so I never got to gas at the old stop, right? So I've been gassing since the one nut deal, and it would be hard for me to compare the old way to the new way. I do know now it is very fast. So you can only get about 3 to 4 seconds out of that first can. So you're looking at 6 to 8 gallons, and then you only have 12 gallons left, right? So if it's an empty fuel run like we saw this weekend in Talladega, like you got to get all the 12 or you're not going to fill the car up, right? So it's gotten to where you can have some mistakes, but you can't have big mistakes anymore and get away with it.
Now, this past weekend, we saw fuel only stops, and watching a couple different things, different teams do things differently. But we noticed that on yours, you actually have somebody standing there just up further up the car, and first off, who is that? And their job literally is to catch you, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's kind of an ongoing joke. It's Trevor Apsey. It's our carrier. He's an ex-football guy too, right? So he's probably looking to, if he gets a chance, he's probably going to take me out. But it might not end up the way he thinks it will. But anyway, so really that guy is there to stop the can from leaving the pit box. So if for whatever reason I don't pull it out in time, or if Ryan, turns the car out really quick, the can could get stuck. I think we've seen it a couple times. Cans will go down pit road, and it's his job not to tackle me, but to make sure the can doesn't leave the pit box. Even though I look at the film now and I can tell he's clearly just trying to tackle me.
He just wants to hit you.
He just wants to hit me. Yeah, it's like, what? Yeah.
Reliving his high school football days or college football days.
He was actually a really good college football player. So, it might not end up well for either one of us.
Now this weekend you mentioned that something bad could happen, and we saw a can go down pit road on the back end of the 54 car. Have you had any incidents like that, or anything that any kind of things? Like we saw one that sparked up a fire a couple weeks ago too. Have you had anything like that happen to you, or no bad experiences?
I haven't. Both of y'all better knock on wood.
Knock on wood.
We're all doing that right now.
Wood right now, because nope. So I just said that the other week that I've never even felt nervous about it. So like I've never had a can get stuck to where I was like, oh, that was close. But yeah, I feel like we see it every week or two, right? We see a can get stuck, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around how that happens, because I haven't felt it yet. But no, I haven't been set on fire. I haven't sent a can down pit road or anything like that. So yeah, I've been blessed on that end.
Yeah, who was it that tried? I was gonna say, who was it that tried and took the wrench off earlier this year when the wrench got stuck?
That was Trevor as well. Yeah, that was Trevor. Yeah, he tried to get it on the way out. Yeah. It was a heck of a attempt.
Yeah,
and
he almost.
And if you look at the helmet cam from the changers, like he is literally like a couple inches away from hitting that thing. So yeah, he's a really good athlete, and he's done some impressive stuff this year.
So speaking of the athletic side of this, you probably spend a lot of the week like working in practice, but also probably in the weight room and doing some other training. So what kind of training goes into the week for being a member of a NASCAR Cup Series pit crew member?
Yeah, so we practice Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Usually Tuesday is a film day and then a weight room day. Occasionally we'll be on the car doing some stationary drills or something that we might have saw the past weekend, or something we want to look at for the next weekend. Wednesday and Thursdays are usually heavy pit stop days. Wednesday, as far as in the gym, we're usually on the turf. We have a turf field at Penske that we'll run on and move around. And then Thursday's back in like a weight room, but it's more of like a mobility day, right? So you got your Tuesday, you're lifting a little bit of weight. Wednesdays you're moving around, and then Thursday you're kind of doing some explosive stuff in the weight room. And then Wednesday, Thursday is the practice heavy days. So, and then Friday, Saturday you're off, and you kind of, gear up for Sunday. And there are a few of us that go in there on Monday and get treatment done, or like, get a workout in or something. But yeah, it's pretty I mean, it's a full-time deal. I think a lot of the fans are confused that they think we just show up to the racetrack on Sunday and do that, but it's not like that at all, right? We they're amazed we have a camera. Well, at practice, we have cameras on every corner of the car and on every head that has a helmet on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can see it from any angle you want to see it from. And then we watch film. A lot of them are surprised that we watch film, but we break film down and we time it. And yeah, it's very intricate, and it has really gotten even more precise the longer I've been in it, right? We did it way back then, but now it is like dialed in.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you guys have to really like worry about where everybody is as they come running to the car, where the car stops, and how you get around everybody. And sometimes you improvise like on the fly. And the only thing that really probably would help with that is more and more repetition, right?
correct. That's absolutely right. We work on that too. We work on stopping long or stopping short or coming around cars, or yeah, we do all that stuff. And like you said, it's still, that's where the athletic side of it kind of comes in some now, right? Like if he goes long, the faster the rear changer is, the quicker he gets to the car. And it kind of just makes sense, right? You want a guy that's kind of faster, and yeah, that's just kind of where the sport's headed.
Now you mentioned all the things you do during the week, but you actually have another job at Penske too, correct?
I do. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yeah, so I work in the parts room as well.
Yeah.
Sure
Then
do.
what kind of stuff week to week you're dealing with there? You pretty much like have to make sure everything comes in. Are you working with just the cup cars? You're working with the Indy side, or
Yeah, just the NASCAR side. So when we had the Xfinity car, I'd work with the Xfinity car too. But pretty much my job title is I work a lot with the engineers. So if they release a project that they want to implement on the car, or if they want to like a pit crew tool or something for the gun or something for the jack, I kind of see that whole thing through. So what I'll do is they'll send it out. This is what we're, send the printout. This is what we're thinking. And then it'll be my job to find out where we order it from, who needs to order it. When it gets here, it comes to me. Then I bill it out of the parts room. I take it to whoever wants it. When they build it up, it comes back to me, and then I deliver. I'm like the middleman, I guess you could say. It starts here and then it ends back. So that's kind of my thing. And we have people that work the counter, and we have purchasing department and shipping and receiving, but that's pretty much my role.
How has that job changed maybe between the past generation of car and then the next gen car, where almost all the parts are having to be purchased and bought instead of being made in-house?
Exactly. Yeah, it's changed a lot. So we used to be chassis pulls, right? You would get this big sheet of all this tubing and sheet metal you would have to get. And it would take you 2 days to pull it, right? So now it's a little bit different, because a lot of the projects that we get are more tooling, or it's like a wind tunnel car, just little stuff we can add or make lighter or tweak just a little bit. But you're right, it's totally different than what it used to be. I mean, man, we'd have so much metal in the back of the parts room, and every time we'd have a wreck or something the week before, we'd be pulling body parts to replace that car. It's not like that anymore. We just order it, shows up, goes out. It's not quite the same. We don't have a lot of stock in the parts room anymore. Yeah.
So obviously you kind of grew up, went through school, your dream at that point shifted to the NFL. You probably dreamed of playing in the Super Bowl one day, winning a ring. That didn't happen, but you get to NASCAR. You've had like you said, about a 15-year career as a member of the pit crew and working with Team Penske. You mentioned you won multiple Xfinity Series, Nationwide Series level championships, but in 2018, you're on the crew for Joey Logano and Todd Gordon as crew chief, and you guys go out there and you win the Cup Series championship, which is, the pinnacle of motorsports in the U.S., especially when it comes to stock cars. So what Can you just talk about that a little bit? And like, it's hard for us who haven't achieved success like that to wrap our heads around that. But it's like you've worked so hard for so long, and then you make it to the pinnacle of this sport, and you get to celebrate in victory lane with the championship.
Yeah. Yeah. So 2018 was the first year they took away a carrier. So that's the first year that we had to actually hang tires. Remember how I told you I'm not built for that, right? So I did make, like, I was on Joey's car 2018, and I actually got moved off that car in the last, maybe the last round or two or three races. We have a guy that still jacks for us now. He jacks Joey's car now, named Graham Stoddard, and he was just better than I was. And when it got closer to championship time, they had to put the best guys they had on the car. So Graham actually went in. I went to Jack Blaney's car for a couple races. And then, yeah, I mean, I did get to celebrate the championship. I was just as happy as anybody. I wasn't ill towards them. I wanted the best for the company, and I was all about, let's put our best foot forward. You know what I mean? My body was hurting, right? I wasn't as good as the other guy. And, but yeah, it was like, I remember calling my wife after the race, and it was like so emotional. Like, you're right, because you worked so hard, especially with that stop, because I was learning to hang a tire. I'd never done it before. And yeah, so I mean, you're right. It was like, I don't know how you top that. Even though I wasn't on the car that won, right? I did the 34 races leading up to it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just like this big relief, like, oh, I'll just go to Gaston now.
So you're on Logano's car for that period of time. You mentioned you've bounced between cars a couple of times, but Todd Gordon eventually does go over, and the whole crew mostly just shifts over to pit Ryan's car. What was it like? I don't know how long you were with Joey, but what's it like kind of changing drivers and getting used to maybe a little bit? Some drivers take more of a leadership role than others, but was it an easy transition to kind of switch between cars, or was it kind of, did it kind of throw you off a little bit?
It was easy for me because I had been with Ryan so much, right? So I did Ryan when he was on the Wood Brothers. I jacked his car for the Xfinity series. Yeah, his first Cup seasons, I was his jack man. So when we got moved over, it was great by me, right? Like, I love Joey and I love Ryan. So it was a win-win. Just put me, play me where you want to play me, but just play me. So I don't care where I'm playing, just play me. But yeah, I know some of the guys that were on Joey's car for long term before that had a tough time, and it took them a while to get over that. But and some of the guys are still on Ryan's team now that were on Joey's team, and I think they're happy now. I think they've realized that Ryan's a stud, and we got just as good a chance as anybody out there every week. So yeah, it was tough. I'm glad they brought Todd too, right? I'm glad it wasn't just the pit crew, or just the road, some weird swap. I'm glad everybody came together, so that made the transition even a little bit easier. They even changed truck drivers. So, I mean, it was a whole shift.
So being in professional sports, especially in the spotlight, and I mentioned sometimes the spotlight when you guys are in it isn't always under the best circumstances. And your front tire changer, Ryan Flores, has mentioned before that pitting the 12 car in the Cup Series is one of the hardest teams and cars to pit, as far as maybe the public perception can be sometimes. Like, it feels like you guys are under a microscope because of things that have happened in the past.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that pressure at all? And do you stay off social media? Do you even let any of that noise in your head, or do you just kind of focus on your job week to week?
Yeah, I don't get on social media. I don't have one. And it's kind of an ongoing joke with all of us on the team that we know it's out there. And it just feels like we had a bad rap for a while. Like luck was not on our side, and it was the craziest stuff too, right? It was like a sign falling off a pole, or it was like spinning out coming up on the racetrack, or it's something crazy. But yeah, me personally, I don't feel any extra stress because of it. I'm going to put my best foot forward no matter what. So I've gotten to this point now to where I'm going to try my hardest. If it goes my way, great. if it doesn't, that's okay, but it ain't going to be because I didn't try. Right. So, um, yeah, I don't feel any extra pressure with that. I want to do my best every time I go out there. And people are going to say what they want to say, and it's not easy. It's really not easy now that it's, the stop it is. So, yeah.
With this past weekend, being gas only stops,
Mhm.
how is that different than a regular stop? Are you listening for, I mean, like who tells you when to disengage from the car, or are you counting, like they say, 5 seconds of
Yeah.
fuel? Are you counting it yourself, or is Jonathan counting it? I mean, how does that kind of work? Because I know it's a regular pit stop. You go over there, you're going to put the whole can in or whatever, but how does a fuel only stop work?
Yeah. So Jonathan will be the one that counts it. And he's up there with Tony, with Palmer, and they are deciding how much gas they need. So my job at the bottom of the box or on the floor level is not to decide how much gas we need to make it to the stage or make it to the end of the race or whatever it is. They report to me how much they need, and we've got a calculation now to where we know if we need 8 gallons of gas to make it, then we need 4 seconds of gas. All right. So when the car comes in, Jonathan or Hassler will get on the radio and he will count down from 4. So as soon as my can goes in, it will be 4, 3, 2, and then Blaney's gone on 1. Um, that's pretty much how we operate, and we've experimented with other stuff, but that's what we always come back to. Yeah.
You mentioned that you don't feel necessarily extra pressure from the outside, but when you come to a track like a super speedway track where you're getting a lot of stops like this, and you kind of know that for much of the day it's all on you, does that motivate you, or does it make you nervous at all, just knowing that you're kind of the center of attention when it comes to races
Yeah.
like this?
Yeah. So I've always said this ever since I've been gassing is there's a nervousness that comes with jacking, right? Like when you're going out there with 4 other guys and you're going to try to perform your job, there's nervousness with that. But you don't know nervous in racing until you have a gas only. I promise you, you don't know it. So there's something about everybody talking and everybody looking at you, and you're the only one that can mess it up.
Yep.
So yeah, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't more um awareness to it, maybe. I don't wouldn't say I get nervous as in like I'm shaking or like I'm like, oh my gosh. But yeah, I would say that super speedways, there's definitely a different approach mentally for me. Just knowing that, hey, pretty much every time we come down is going to be on how fast can I go. So yeah, I would say there's definitely a different mindset for speedways for a fueler or a gas fan than it is for a Darlington or a Martinsville or something, for sure.
And I have to imagine that those nerves, in some instances, with the way that some of these races can go into multiple overtime situations, the nerves don't
Yeah.
end when the pit stop ends. You're you're probably really nervous to make sure. All right, we
Yeah.
know we can make it to the end of the first overtime, but after that,
Yeah.
it's going to get a little hairy.
Yeah, so I've been, yeah, that's what really makes me nervous. Not so much the performance, right? Like I'm okay if I go 100% and something happens. What makes me really nervous is not knowing if we're going to make it or if we're like 1 lap to the good, right? And it's kind of depending on how much gas Blaney saves. So it's kind of out of my hands at that point. I would say I probably get more nervous for that. I think you're right.
So,
Where Tony
yeah.
Palmer's the man. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like he's on it.
So different crew members that we've talked to, you took a little bit of a different path into the sport. Some people on the mechanic side have talked about, oh, they lived up north and they decided to pack their bags and they're going to go to North Carolina. They sleep on somebody's couch and they eventually get, an opportunity. In this modern era of being on a high level pit crew, do you have any advice for people that might want to get into this sport, and would you encourage other ex athletes that maybe didn't make it to the next level in their sport to try to get into the recruitment zone for one of these race teams?
Yeah, so I would say that, my word of advice would be, it's kind of hard because I almost feel like you have to know somebody. And I say that kind of lightly, but I feel like that's how majority of people get into the sport, right? They've got a family member that worked in the race shop. They've got a friend that's on a pit crew. They got a friend of a friend that is a pit crew guy. Um, I know we have a pit school that you can pay to go to, and we have gotten a couple guys from that place that did really well. Um, I would say if that's not the route you want to go to, where you want to go live on somebody's couch and pay for a school, I would say best thing you can do is probably network your butt off, go to Charlotte Motor Speedway and just talk to people. Right? That would be my word of advice. And as far as athletes go, I would say, heck yeah, it's a great career. I mean, you get to kind of it's not going to be what you had, right? It's not going to be baseball, football, basketball, soccer. It's not going to be any of that stuff, but it is competitive, and you're still part of a team, and you get that aspect of it, and you can make a good living. Um, and there's pressure that comes with it, and most athletes like that feeling. You know what I mean? Um, so I would definitely say if you're an ex-athlete and you're looking for a career choice, this is not a bad one.
Um, well, I think that pretty much wraps it up. We really want to thank you for
Yeah.
giving us the time and talking with us. I mean, the only other thing I would really say is, you guys are locked into the round of 8 in 2023 here. You do have one more race after, before we go into that portion of the season. But what's your outlook for this 12 team and Ryan Blaney the rest of the year?
We're gonna win this thing. I think we're gonna win one of the next three, and I don't know which one because he's good at all three, and he is bad to the bone at Phoenix. If I was another driver, I would not want him in that race.
Yeah.
So unless he gets wrecked for 3 weeks in a row, like if we get to Phoenix, we'll win. That's my outlook. And it's weird how that shifted this past week, right?
Yep.
So we were kind of all down and out, and like, hey, if we don't finish good here, we're gonna have to win at the Roval, and that's kind of a crapshoot. And then we won, and then it's like, man, we can win this whole thing now. Let's just do that, right? Let's just wipe out the past few races, and let's just go win the whole thing.
That's right. Unfinished business, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's a good one. If we bring that same car we had last year, we'll be A-okay.
All right.
Absolutely.
We're here for it.
Yeah. That'll be a
Chris,
party.
we're big fans now of you for sure. And we wish you and the 1-2 crew all the luck the rest of the way, and go get that championship. And thanks for your time.
Yeah. Thank you very much, guys. It was great meeting you.
Steve, we've interviewed several members of the crew at this point over the last couple of years. We've had, crew chiefs, engineers, road crew members. All of them have given amazing perspective, but the one perspective we've been missing so far, and hopefully in the future we'll get even more, is a member of the over the wall pit crew. And it was so great to have Chris Conklin on with us. And I just feel like he answered the question so well, gave us some really great insight, and especially just to his specific position, because it's really easy just to think, all the fuel man does is pick up gas cans and that's it. But these guys are training hard all week long. Sometimes they have full-time jobs doing other things with the race teams. And, he didn't make it in the NFL like he maybe thought he would, but I still feel like he's kind of living the dream.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks again to Jonathan for setting that up for us. It was great to have him on to hear that insight, and just makes you want to root for them guys even more when we learn more about them and how good they are. And it really says a lot about the character that they have. And, can't wait to see how they do these next couple of weeks. And we're with him these next couple of weeks. They're going to go win it all.
Absolutely. And I like this, what you said about rooting for him, because we try to say all the time that this is a team sport. It's really easy to get just caught up in the fact that you're rooting for a driver. It's all about Ryan. And obviously we're huge fans of Ryan Blaney, but it is such a team sport. And this pit crew means so much. And especially this victory at Talladega, if he makes a mistake here or there during that race, Ryan could have lost track position and never got the checkered flag. So he executed a perfect race. They ended up in victory lane. They're on to the round of 8. And it was just so interesting to learn Chris's story. And yeah, we're really thankful that he came on to talk with us, and we're really glad that we were able to help share his story with all of our listeners out there. But yeah, so hopefully everybody enjoyed this extra bonus episode. I want to thank you once again for tuning in. If you'd like to learn more about myself or co-host Steve, just listen to our very first episode that explores our Blaney racing fandom. You can interact with us on Facebook and X at Team Blaney, and on Instagram and TikTok at team.blaney. And as always, I'd like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. This organization was established in 2018 and supports causes like the Alzheimer's Association and UPMC Sports Medicine through fundraisers, events, and membership in the Blaney Bunch Fan Club. To learn more, visit RyanBlaneyFamilyFoundation.org or follow them on Facebook, X, Instagram, all of their active social media channels. But for now, and for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Brussels. Check out the TikTok.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.